Let's try from the beginning, Chavrim. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishbi, Eliyahu hagiladi, Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishbi, Eliyahu hagiladi. B'meira yavan yeleinu, yavan yeleinu, im Mashiach ben David, im Mashiach ben David, b'meira yavan yeleinu, yavan.
Good evening, my holy sisters and brothers. That was Rabbi Shlomo Katz singing his version of Eliyahu Hanavi. We sing, about Eliyahu Hanavi on Saturday nights after the departure of Shabbos. Tonight we say a good vach, a good week, Shavua Tov, a good week. We also say Hodesh Tov because now is Rosh Hodesh, the first of the Hebrew month of Nisan. We're welcoming Nisan. This is a fantastic month that includes Passover. We have been studying the laws of Passover for so long, and now we are really in a Passover frame of mind. We bring in the new month with great joy, and particularly when the new month is Nisan, the festival of our redemption. Passover is included. Why do we sing about Eliyahu Hanavi on Saturday nights? Eliyahu was the great prophet Elijah. And he never died, right? Elijah, it says in the Bible, ascended in a fiery chariot. And because he didn't die in this world, but went on to sort of perform his duties in heaven, well, part of those duties included coming back to earth, and he often visits. He's there every time there's a bris, a circumcision, welcoming a new Jewish boy into the covenant, and he appears at other times and places as well. And tradition says that Eliyahu Hanavi, the prophet Elijah, will come to herald the coming of the Messiah before the Messiah comes, before we enter the Messianic age. But he won't be coming on Shabbos. We have a tradition, right, that we won't be troubled on Shabbos because Shabbos itself is so important. It is a taste of the world to come. So when Shabbos ends, we just check, oh, Elijah is the prophet coming, and we sing to Eliyahu Hanavi. How are you? Let's light up the darkness. New wisdom candle. Just 2 more of these and it'll be Pesach. It's coming that fast. We're so excited. Who is with us as we get it going on a Saturday night? Pauline in Arkansas, Paul tagging his friend Angel, Melissa in Great Neck, Gail in Virginia, Bill in Berkeley, Terry in Alabama, Jacob says Shavua Tov, Alan tagging his friend Darian, Chaim in Charlotte, Crystal in British Columbia, our friend Mr. Chand in Pakistan, welcome. James in Indianapolis, Michael says, sounds so glad to catch you live. It's Mickey from Vineland, New Jersey, Sons of Jacob Synagogue. Welcome, Mickey. Anne in Merced, Jennifer in Ocala, Sarah in LA, who loves the music, Ryan, Shavua Tov, V'Baruch Hashem from Jacksonville, Florida. Holy. He's so happy to be here with us. Crystal is very excited that Mashiach ben David, the Messiah, the descendant of King David, will be here very soon. Spencer wishing us a Shavua Tov from West Hartford. Sharon in Lebanon. Terry in Kentucky. Josette in Colorado. James in Lexington, Tennessee. Elvis in Geneva, New York. Welcome, everybody. Over there on the YouTube side, Gigi in British Columbia, Lindsay in Cincinnati, and Lynn in North Texas. Welcome. Okay, where are we holding? This is Daf Daf Kuf Yud Beis, page 112 here in Tractate Pesachim, the 4th volume of the Talmud. We are in chapter 10, the final chapter. Yet another daf, another page, analyzing this very short Mishnah at the beginning of chapter 10, Mishnah number 1, which is in part about having 4 cups of wine at the Passover Seder. It is mandatory. Every Jew has to have 4 cups of wine or grape juice at the Passover Seder. That led us into a long digression, actually about demonology, because there was an understanding in the Babylonian Jewish community, surrounded as they were by the Babylonian community in the Persian Empire, that were very concerned for the dangers of evil spirits and demons, as well as witchcraft and sorcery, about measures we can take to protect ourselves from those kind of forces. Among them, don't drink in pairs, don't drink an even number of cups. So then the question was asked, well, if we drink 4 cups of Passover, should we be concerned about those evil forces? No, we're not, because on Passover, the children of Israel have an extra measure of protection that was afforded to them in Egypt at the first Passover and is with us every Passover since. So now we continue our discussion. We're going to mention a little bit of these demons and evil forces, but now we're actually going to get into some practical advice as well in tonight's page from Rabbi Akiva and from Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and Rabbi Yosef and a few others. This is a very enjoyable page. I think you're going to have some fun here with both the practical and the not so practical advice. So let's just get right into it. We begin at the very bottom of page 111 on the B side. The administering angel, interesting, the administering angel, often translated as the ministering angel, appointed over food is called nakid, which is a play on the word clean, naki, and particular about cleanliness. And the administering angel appointed over poverty is called naval. And the angel appointed over food will not stay in a dirty place, while the angel appointed over poverty will thrive there. So we have this teaching right away. I'll just read Rav Steinsaltz's note. When one keeps a clean house, the angel of sustenance can dwell there. However, when people treat food disrespectfully and live in filth, the angel of poverty is happy to dwell among them. There, I would say that's kind of spiritual and quite practical advice. Keep a clean house and you'll keep away from poverty. A plate placed on a jug causes poverty. One who drinks water from a plate causes eye pain. One who eats cress without washing his hands will be afraid for 30 days. One who lets blood and does not wash his hands will be afraid for 7 days. Now, this bloodletting, it's so interesting. It's so unfamiliar to us. It's something like maybe, if you're into reading Victorian novels and novels, from the 19th century, it'll be very familiar to you, or anything more ancient than that, because bloodletting used to be the most common medical procedure. It was based on this understanding in the ancient world that the body, has liquids in it which are known as humors, which need to be balanced, and sometimes the other humors would have, there would be too much blood in the body compared to the other humors. And it was considered medically beneficial to let blood. And so bloodletting does come up from time to time in the Talmud. And particularly the idea is that when you've let blood, you are weakened, which sounds absolutely correct. Anybody who's donated blood knows that. And in your weakened state, you certainly should be careful about various things, including hygiene, right? So if you do not wash your hands after letting blood, interesting, not that you'll get sick, but that you'll live in fear, that you'll have a kind of unnatural, inexplicable fear about your person. One who cuts his hair and does not wash his hands will be afraid for 3 days. One who cuts his nails and does not wash his hands will be afraid for 1 day, and he will not know what is frightening him. It's not mentioned here, but I'll just mention that we saw elsewhere in the Talmud that nail trimmings are considered to be dangerous for pregnant women, right? Call it an old-fashioned superstition as you will, but the cure for that is when you trim your nails, be neat and clean to make sure that you dispose of those things properly, lest a pregnant woman come to walk over them, and truly, lest any person come to encounter your nail trimmings, why would they want to encounter your nail trimmings? It's something worth being punctilious about, just as the tradition advises. Placing one's hand on his nostrils is a way to become afraid. Placing one's hand on his forehead is a way to fall asleep. A sage taught, if food and drink are under one's bed, even if they are covered with iron vessels, an evil spirit rests upon them. The sages taught a person should not drink water on Tuesday nights or Shabbos nights, i.e. Friday night. And if he drinks water, his blood is upon his own head due to the danger. And the Gemara asks, what is this danger? And the Gemara answers, the danger of the evil spirit that rules on these days. Now, hold on. I had there was a note about that. Where'd it go? Where did that go? I know it must have been included in the text. Okay. And the Gemara asks, and if he is thirsty, what is his remedy? What should he drink? And the Gemara answers, he should say the 7 voices that David said over the water, and afterward he may drink. You know, I'm sorry. It's bothering me that I don't have this note. It must have come later. I know I read it. Tuesday nights. Okay. So what is this business about Tuesday nights and Friday nights? That seems to be like evil forces are more active in the world on Tuesday nights and Friday nights. Okay, so one explanation for this is that on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, rural folk would travel through the dark to reach the markets or courts by daybreak. And on Mondays because Mondays and Thursdays were market days. And then they would return home on the following night, on Mondays and Thursdays. In addition, travelers would return from the city at the conclusion of Shabbos. However, there was no need to travel on Tuesday nights and Friday nights when people are home. So in other words, the idea is don't go out alone on Tuesdays and Friday nights because there's very few people about. In the ancient world where there was a lot more movement to go to the market days on Mondays and Thursdays, so Tuesday nights and Friday nights were those nights where very few people were out there traveling, and you would be more likely to find yourself on a desolate road by yourself. And so don't go out alone on those nights. Okay. And as we've seen, these evil spirits tend to hover over water. So water can be a place of danger because you'll kind of bump into them there. They're not really out to get you, but if you put yourself in a place where they are congregating, then you might have trouble. So now the Gemara asks, and if he is thirsty, what is his remedy? What should he drink? And the Gemara answers, he should say the 7 voices that David said over the water, and afterward he may drink, as it is stated. So this idea that, well, you're in that dangerous situation, you're thirsty, you want to drink that water in that place. What can you do? You can use these verses from Psalm 29, verses 3 through 9, as an incantation against these evil spirits by telling them that God's spirit hovers over the waters. So I'm going to read this in English, and then I'll sing it to you in Hebrew, because this is a song that we sing every Friday night as part of our Kabbalah Shabbos, and it's really one of my favorite songs in the world. So what you would say is an incantation in this situation, but it's good to remember anytime you're near water. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. God of glory thunders, even the Lord upon many waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. He makes them also skip like a calf, Lebanon and Syrian like a young wild ox. The voice of the Lord hews out flames of fire. The voice of the Lord shakes the wilderness. The Lord shakes the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord makes the hinds to calve and strips the forests bare. And in his temple all say glory. Right? And when we sing that, Kol mizmor leDavid, ay 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 ay, ay 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 ay, 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 kol Hashem al hamayim el hakavod hirim, Hashem al mayim rabim, kol Hashem b'hakoyach, kol Hashem behadar, kol Hashem Shoiver arazim, hay hay hay, v'shoiver Hashem es arzei alvanan, kol Hashem hoitzef lavoseish, kol Hashem yachil Hashem midbar kadesh, kol Hashem yehula yalois vayechesof. Yeah, right. Say, yeah, ufekalo kulo. Oh, merkavod. I misphrased it a little bit, but you get the idea. And when you have like a bunch of people singing that song, whoo, very powerful. Let's continue. And if he does not remember that verse, that's why I sang it for you, right? That if you're familiar with that Mizmor LeDavid melody, then you can always remember that verse. But if he does not remember that verse, he should say as follows: Lul, Shafan, Anigron, Anir Dafin, which are names of demons. And so you're saying to them, to these demons, Lul, Shafan, Anigron, Anir Dafan, I sit between the stars. I walk between thin and fat people. Take any of them if you wish, but leave me alone. And if he does not recall this incantation, if there is another person with him, he should wake the person and say to him, so-and-so, son of so-and-so, I thirst for water, and then he may drink. So the situation is you find yourself alone at night, but you're not really alone, you're camping. There's another person there, but he's asleep. That's why you're alone. But if you want to take a drink, wake him up. Now there's two of you, and demons are unlikely to attack two people. They attack lonely, isolated people. And if there is no other person with him, he should knock the cover on the cup and then drink, make a noise. And if he is not able to do this, he should throw some object in it and then drink, some object in the water. The sages taught a person should not drink water from rivers or from ponds at night. And if he drank, his blood is upon his own head due to the danger. The Gemara explains, what is this danger? The danger of blindness. And if he is thirsty, what is his remedy? If there is another person with him, he should say to him, so-and-so, son of so-and-so, I thirst for water. And if there's no one else with him, he should say to himself, so-and-so, my mother said to me to beware of Shavrire, the demon of blindness. And he should continue to say the following incantation, in the first part of which the demon's name gradually disappears. Shavrire barire, rire yiri ri. I thirst for water in white earthenware cups. This is an incantation against those demons of blindness. And now the Gemara returns to the statement of the Mishnah, Mishnah number 1 here in chapter 10, that on Passover one must drink no less than 4 cups of wine. And this halacha applies even if the poor person accepts funds from the charity plate, right? So even one who is so poor that all his food comes from the charity of the community, nevertheless, even this person should have the full 4 cups of wine on Passover. The Gemara asks, it is obvious that this is the case. If there is a mitzvah, if there is an obligation to drink these 4 cups, then they must be provided for every Jew. And the Gemara answers, this Mishnah is necessary only to teach that this halacha, this law, applies even according to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who said, make your Shabbos like an ordinary weekday rather than be beholden to other beings. If one is unable to honor Shabbat without financial help from others, it is better for him to save money and eat his Shabbos meals as he would on a weekday rather than rely on other people. But here in the case of the 4 cups on Passover, even Rabbi Akiva concedes that it is appropriate for a poor person to request assistance for the community due to the obligation to publicize the miracle, right? Publicize the miracle we usually hear about in connection to Hanukkah. A miracle was performed for us and we light the Chanukiah usually called a menorah, in the window or outside the house so that people see it, and we're publicizing the miracle. But Passover is also a time of publicizing the miracle. Many miracles that happened for us so that we were redeemed from slavery in Egypt. With regard to this issue, the school of Eliyahu taught that although Rabbi Akiva said, make your Shabbos like a weekday and do not be beholden to other people, however, one should nevertheless perform some small alteration in his house to distinguish Shabbos from a weekday. So even if you're so poor that the only way you're going to be able to have, a nice Shabbos dinner is to take charity or to borrow from the community and to feel obligated to them in a way that you might feel sort of lowers your dignity. So even if you're not going to take that assistance from the community to have a nice Shabbos meal, nevertheless, make sure that somehow your Shabbos meal is distinguished from the meals of the rest of the week. And the Gemara asks, what is this alteration? How do you make it different? And Rav Papa said, for example, one should serve small fried fish. As we learned in the Mishna, Rabbi Yehuda ben Tema says, be bold like a leopard, light like an eagle, run like a deer, and be strong like a lion to perform the will of your Father in heaven. And this statement teaches that one should exert every effort to perform a mitzvah. So even if you're not going to have, some kind of fancy big meat dish and two challahs and nice wine, just do something that distinguishes it for you. The Gemara cites the full source of Rabbi Akiva's statement with regard to Shabbos preparations. The sages taught Rabbi Akiva commanded Rabbi Yehoshua, his son, about 7 matters. My son, now here's 7 bits of advice from Rabbi Akiva, the great and holy Rabbi Akiva. Never was such a rabbi from Moses until Akiva. That's how high and how highly esteemed Rabbi Akiva was. So Rabbi Akiva said to his son, Rabbi Yehoshua, my son, do not sit at the high point of a city where many people pass and study there, as the passers-by will attempt to interrupt you. I mean, anybody who's, been to college and is looking for a nice quiet place to study knows you don't sit in a place where your friends are likely to walk by and interrupt you. And do not live in a city whose leaders are Torah scholars. Now that makes you stop. Wait, what? Isn't that exactly what you would want? That the leaders of a city, the mayor and the other administrators would all be Torah scholars and would be, clearly guided by Torah principles? Why wouldn't you want that? Says Rabbi Akiva, when we're talking about proper Torah scholars, well, all they want to do is study Torah, and they're going to be too busy with Torah to govern the city properly. Right? So you don't really want politicians who are running things to be too invested, not in Torah study or any other avocation other than governing the city. That's what you want from the people who govern the city. Rabbi Akiva continued, and do not enter your house suddenly without knocking first. All the more so, do not enter the house of another, as he might not be ready to receive you. I mean, I don't know how much explanation that requires. Don't walk into a person's house without knocking first. But we can extend that, at least from me, and say, don't walk into anybody's room without knocking first. And parents, don't walk into your kids' rooms without knocking first. Show respect to the people behind the door. Give them a chance to get ready for you. Don't burst in without knocking first. And do not withhold shoes from your feet, as it is disgraceful to go barefoot. Wake up and eat in the summer due to the heat, as it is best to eat before it grows hot, and in the winter due to the strength you will need to tolerate the cold. Sounds like Rabbi Akiva was not into intermittent fasting, which holds that you don't eat any meal in the morning until lunchtime. Rabbi Akiva says, have a good breakfast. In the summer, you should eat a good breakfast early before it gets hot, and in the winter, it'll keep you from getting cold. And make Shabbos like a weekday and do not be beholden to other people, as we've already heard, and exert yourself to join together with a person upon whom the hour smiles, i.e., a successful person. When you can identify someone in your world who's having great success, according to whatever you call successful, so that's a person to attach yourself to in some way. In what way? In what way should we look to attach ourselves to successful people because fortune is smiling on them? Not only financially, right? But it's an idea that a person who is wholly successful, right? That they're doing well in their business, they're doing well in their family, they're doing well in the community, they're respected. People who are doing well, they got all cylinders firing. In some way, you want to attach yourself. You want to be involved with those kind of people. Now, Rav Papa said in explanation of this last statement, and remember that Rav Papa was one of these people, extremely successful in every area of his life. Even Rav Papa said, do not buy from him and do not sell to him. If he is the beneficiary of good fortune, he will profit from any business transaction and perhaps you will suffer from it. Rather, form a partnership with him. Right? So somebody who's doing great in business, be careful about buying and selling from him. Better, if possible, form a partnership with him so that you can benefit from all the success that he is having. However, and now we have heard that Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak said, what is the meaning of that which is written? You have blessed the work of his hands. That was said about Job in chapter 1, verse 10. This means that anyone who took a peruta, meaning a penny, anyone who took a penny from Job would be blessed, even if he received it via a business transaction. And this shows that one should even engage in business with a person who is blessed, for even if he wishes to buy from him or sell to him, it is well. So we don't listen to, at least according to Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, don't listen to Rav Papa on that. Dealing with a person who's very successful in all areas of his life, if you can't form a partnership with him, then go into business with him. In other words, buy and sell with him. It's okay because that person, fortune is smiling on him, and that's not a person who is likely to be ripping people off or he wouldn't be successful in all areas of his life. The Gemara continues to cite similar advice dispensed by Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva commanded Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai to do 5 matters when Rabbi Akiva was imprisoned. Remember, Rabbi Akiva, toward the end of his life, was imprisoned by the Romans for teaching Torah and eventually became a martyr, and he died a horrible, horrible, horrible death, but with the Shema on his lips, right? And his students were watching him. We won't say how he was killed in a really torturous, horrible way. But he was even then devoted to God. And his students said, even now? And he said, all my life I have wondered how to fulfill the obligation to love the Lord your God with all your soul is truly fulfilled. And now I know. I mean, he was martyred for teaching Torah. And he was actually thankful for that opportunity. He did have a long life, a very long life. And he died with the Shema on his lips and earned an extremely high place in the world to come, very near to the throne of glory. So during the time of his imprisonment, he commanded another sage, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, to do 5 things. Beforehand, Rabbi Shimon said to him, Rabbi, teach me Torah. And Rabbi Akiva said to him, I will not teach you, as it is dangerous to do so at the present time. Right? At the time that he finally was imprisoned for teaching Torah, he didn't want to teach because the student would be endangered. He was willing to teach, but it was dangerous to the student. Rabbi Shimon said to him in jest, if you will not teach me, I will tell Yochai, my father, and he will turn you over to the government. Obviously joking. But unfortunately, it came true. In other words, I have no means of persuading you. You are already in prison. I guess he was already on his way to prison, so he was joking. Yeah, if you don't teach me, I'll have you in prison. But he was already on his way to prison. Rabbi Akiva said, my son, know that more than the calf wishes to suck, the cow wants to suckle. That's a phrase we'll often see in the Talmud. And it means, more than the baby wishes to suck, the mother wishes to suckle. More than the student wants to learn, the teacher wants to teach. Or even more than the student wants to learn, the teacher wishes to teach. He says, but I am afraid of the danger. Rabbi Shimon said to him, And who is in danger? Isn't the calf in danger, as you are in jail and I am the one at risk? And Rabbi Akiva said to him, well, if so, I will tell you a few matters. Right? I'm just going to teach you a few things, learn them, and then go away. Don't get yourself in trouble. I don't want you to end up in prison like me. Excuse me. So first of all, if you wish to strangle yourself, hang yourself on a tall tree. If you wish to strangle yourself, hang yourself on a tall tree. This requires explanation because it 100% does not mean what you think it means. It's not, this is the best way to commit suicide. Rather, it's a totally, aliteral description. He's being, metaphorical. And what he's saying is, this proverb means that if one wants others to accept what he has to say, he should attribute his statement to a great man. And when you teach your son, teach him from a corrected text. And the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of that statement? And Rava said, and some say Rav Misharshia said, Rabbi Akiva was referring to learning a new topic. For once a mistake enters one's mind, it has entered there and is difficult to put right. So what he's saying is, when you're learning something new, something for the first time, or when you're teaching children who are learning things for the first time, make absolutely sure that what you're teaching is correct. Because the first time you learn something is going to make the deepest impression. That's why it's so important to learn from teachers that, are reputable, respectable, that are sure to be teaching things correctly. Because when you learn at a young age and you're learning falsehood and lies and fakery, it's a terrible, terrible result. That the first time you learn something, you learn it wrong because that impression is always going to remain within a person. Rabbi Akiva further told Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, do not cook in a pot in which your colleague cooked his food. And the Gemara asks, what is the meaning of this statement? And the Gemara explains, Rabbi Akiva is referring to marrying a divorced woman in the lifetime of her former husband. Now, to clarify, this is not saying don't marry a divorced woman. What this is saying is that at that time, the patriarchal law was such that a man could give a wife a divorce against her will. He had the right to divorce. She, did not, right? And so it could happen that a man would divorce a woman. She didn't want to get divorced. She would still have feelings for the man. I mean, why should she have feelings for this guy who threw her to the curb like that? But she might. And maybe he divorced her because of some other practical, political thing, who knows what. But the fact is, she might still have feelings for the first husband. And so what he's saying to you is don't marry a divorced woman who's still in love with her first husband. Be sure not to do that. And as the master said, if a divorced man marries a divorced woman, there are 4 minds in the bed during intimacy. Each person is thinking about his current and former spouse, which verges on illegitimacy. And if you wish, say instead that this advice holds true even with regard to marrying a widow, as not all fingers are equal. It is possible that intimate relations with her second husband might not be as pleasing as with the first, leading her to disparage or even hate him. Right? So, bottom line, it's worth saying, it's good practical advice. Don't marry someone, that isn't committed to the relationship with you. Should go without saying, but is worth saying. Rabbi Akiva continued to offer instruction. It is a mitzvah and a great material benefit to one's body to eat fruits without payment. That is, when one lends money and takes land as collateral, deducting from the loan the value of the fruit that he eats, both the borrower and the lender benefit from this practice. One who both performs a mitzvah and retains a pure body is also one who marries a woman, as his thoughts will remain pure and he will merit to have children. Right? In other words, somebody who's very into sex, get married as soon as possible so that you can direct that energy into building a family rather than lasciviousness, etc. Rabbi Akiva continued to offer instruction. The Gemara cites more instructions issued by a sage to his heirs. Now we're moving on to advice from someone else. Our holy rabbi, meaning Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, the redactor of the Mishna, commanded his sons to do 4 matters. Do not live in Shekantsiv, in Babylonia, because they are mockers, right? So this is an area where they mock the Torah, not a good place for Torah scholars to live. And they will draw you into their mockery and lead you to abandon your Torah studies. I mean, this is something worth noting. We live in a time now when secularism is just so pervasive, right? And it's just so much a part of Hollywood and academia and media, to mock people of faith. Okay, so, if you want to live a life of faith, be sure to associate with people who share your values, because spending too much time around people who mock faith is going to make it difficult for you to live a life strong in faith. That's certainly good advice. And Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and that's why, and we see so much that Judaism exists in community. To really practice traditional Judaism, you have to be in a community of Jews. Very difficult to do without a community around you. There's so many practices that require community, and then in community we all reinforce each other when we, as individuals have times of doubt and crisis of faith, etc. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi further commanded his sons, do not sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. This advice is explained in different ways. Some say it means that you should not go to sleep without reciting the Shema, as a Jew who does this acts like a non-Jew, the Arameans who surrounded them in that community. And some say it means that you should not marry a convert, i.e. a Jewish woman who was once an Aramean. Now let's read Rav Steinsaltz's note on this. You should not marry a convert. This is a strange statement, as several renowned figures married converts. For example, Boaz, who married Ruth, i.e. the book of Ruth in the Bible, and Joshua, who married the woman that they met on the way into Jericho, as stated elsewhere in the Gemara. Furthermore, the Gemara in Tractate Horayos on page 13a states that that everyone runs to marry a convert, that it's good to marry a convert. Some commentaries explain that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was referring specifically to his own sons who were prohibited to marry converts because they were Kohanim, right? They are priests. A priest cannot marry, I think even a divorcee he can't marry, and he can't marry a convert either, right? So the priests had very strict limitations on who they were allowed to marry if they were going to be allowed to continue to perform the avoda, the divine service, when the temple is standing. And some say that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi meant the actual bed of an Aramean woman, and this is due to the concern for a similar outcome to the later incident involving Rav Papa. The incident in question was as follows. Rav Papa entered the house of a non-Jewish woman to collect a debt, and the woman asked him to sit on her bed until she brought the money. As it turned out, she had placed her dead baby under the bed. Rav Papa was subsequently accused of killing the baby and was forced to flee from the district. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi continued, continued, and do not avoid paying taxes, lest they find you and confiscate everything you own. And do not stand before an ox when it emerges from the marsh, because Satan dances between its horns, i.e. an ox is particularly menacing at that time. Rabbi Shmuel said this is referring to a black ox, and specifically during the days of Nisan, and today is the first day of Nisan, when the ox is most dangerous. Rabbi Oshaya teaches with regard to the same issue, one distances himself 50 cubits, even from an innocent ox. An ox with no history of causing damage to people. From a forewarned ox, right? So the Torah distinguishes between an ox, which is a habitual gorer. That's what we're talking about now. It has already attacked people versus an ox who, has no history like that. The habitual gorer, if it now hurts a person, the owner is going to be responsible in a much more significant way, even guilty of a type of murder for that. And so for a forewarned ox, okay, don't rely on the owner to keep you safe from it. Keep a distance. That's the same theme we've been hearing so many times. The sages say, if you see danger, walk around. Do not endanger yourself, because then you're just you're asking for trouble. Whenever we're in a time of absolute danger, right, where we could be killed, at that moment, essentially what's happening is we're on trial in heaven, right? At that moment, when we're in so much danger that we could easily die, the angels are having a discussion with God and saying, should this person be saved or not, right? And if you are saved, so you've used up one of your miracles from heaven, and you could have avoided using that up by just avoiding the danger altogether. And you might lose the trial and, end your life. So avoid danger. A sage taught, citing the name of Rabbi Meir in an exaggerated vein, even if the head of the ox is in its basket, go up to the roof and kick the ladder out from underneath you to escape from it. Just avoid dealing with oxes, right? Avoid dealing with bulls. Rav said, the cry that one says to lead an ox is hen hen. The cry to lead a lion is zezeh. The cry to lead a camel is dada. The cry to laborers using ropes to pull a ship along a river is heleni haya, hella vehiluk hulya. I have no comment to make on those. Abaye said, and I'm almost done, so if you have questions and comments, please get them in there. Abaye said, hide, fish, and a cup, hot water, and eggs, and white lice all cause the other matter, meaning tzara'as. That kind of skin outbreak, which was a physical manifestation of a spiritual malady, and yet being, careless about these matters can, sort of make you more vulnerable to tzara'as. And the Gemara elaborates, hide is referring to one who sleeps on a tanner's hide before it has been tanned. That very smelly object. Fish is referring to the Shabuta fish in the days of Nisan. The cup is referring to one who eats the leftovers of small fried fish. Hot water is referring to very hot water that one pours on himself. Don't overdo dipping in super hot water. Eggs mean one who steps on eggshells. White lice is referring to one who washes his garment but does not keep it for 8 days before wearing it again, a habit which leads to infestation by these lice. And all of these practices cause the other matter to rise. Rav Papa said, with regard to a house in which there is a cat, a person should not enter there barefoot. What is the reason? Because the cat might kill a snake and eat it, and the snake has small bones. And if a small bone gets into one's foot, it cannot be removed, and he will be in danger. So don't walk barefoot. That's generally a good rule. Some say that Rav Papa said, with regard to a house in which there is no cat, a person should not enter there in the dark. What is the reason? Since there is no cat to hunt snakes, perhaps a snake will wrap itself around him without him knowing, and he will be in danger. And finally, Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosei, commanded Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi with regard to 3 matters. And parenthetically, the Gemara states that Mem Kaf Shin is a mnemonic for the 3 statements, as it stands for Mem, blemish, is a mum, a blemish, Mekach, a purchase, and Ishtecha, your wife. And the first matter is, do not inflict a blemish upon yourself. The Gemara asks, what is the meaning of this statement? And the Gemara explains, do not have a court case against 3 people, as one will be your opponent, and the other 2 will act as witnesses and testify against you, whatever they wish. And do not stand over and display interest in a purchase when you do not have enough money, even for the price you are offering, as this constitutes fraud. We're going to leave it at that. But that teaching, I want to end on that. It's a good place because it's very important to remember that. The Gemara explains that if you are looking at an object, in the marketplace, and so somebody's selling stuff and you're looking at, and you start to inspect something carefully, like you're interested in buying it. Okay, if you are interested in buying it and you're really inspecting it to decide whether or not you're going to buy it, fine. But if you don't really have any interest in buying it, don't do that. Why? Because for one thing, the seller will look at the way you're behaving and think, oh, maybe I'm charging too much money for that. And he'll end up changing his prices and take a loss in his income based on behavior he observes in you, which is false behavior. You never really intended to buy it anyway. It's not that you looked at it, considered, thought the price was too high, and then put it down. There's another related teaching to that, which is very modern. And that is, don't waste a salesman's time. Particularly these days, when somebody might walk into a store because they want to see an object in person, and then take out their phone and order it from Amazon because it's cheaper. Now, it's particularly true if you're going to go into the store, look at the object, and have a salesman spend his time describing to you why you should or shouldn't, what's good about that object and how to use it, and give you his pitch. Because now he's spending his time on you as a potential customer, but if you know inside that you're going to just sort of take the knowledge that you acquire from the salesman and then go order this thing on Amazon, that's actually unethical behavior. You're wasting the salesman's time, you're kind of stealing his time, and you shouldn't do that, right? You shouldn't do that. And even don't go into Best Buy to see the object and then order it from Amazon because it's a little cheaper. Best Buy has employees. Best Buy has stockholders. Best Buy is trying to run a business in a difficult world. So even though you might think Best Buy is a big corporation, what do they care if I go in and look at the object and then order it somewhere else? It's not ethical. Don't, feign interest in purchasing something when you have no intent to buy it. You can always change your mind and decide not to buy. That's okay. But if you're going to go into a seller's place of business and look at the merchandise, you should only do that if you're actually considering buying it. Maybe it's part of your shopping process. You're not going to necessarily buy it today. One thing you can always do is say immediately to the salesman, listen, I just want you to know I'm starting to think about buying one of these. I'm not a purchaser today. I just want you to know that. And then if he chooses to spend time with you and develop a relationship, knowing what your actual intent is, okay, well, that's not misleading. That's a different idea, right? So something worth noting. Okay, let us check comments and questions. Sharon, today's Parsha tells us that the Mishkan was dedicated on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Exactly, the Parsha that we read today, Vayakel Pekudei, a double Torah portion that we read this morning in synagogue, was the second telling of how the tabernacle was built in the wilderness. It was told twice. The first time is the holy instructions from God of what you are to do. And the second time is when the people actually did it. And it's so many verses are dedicated. It's like many more verses, by like a factor of 10 are dedicated to building the tabernacle as compared to the number of verses in the Torah about God constructing the universe. And so why? And that tells you that this is a very practical religion. It's, obviously there's much to say in Judaism about big philosophical ideas, but it's lived in an experiential way. And so the Torah spends more time telling us exactly how to conduct ourselves and to lead our lives of holiness. And now Sharon is pointing out that the tabernacle was erected on this day, right? The first day of Nisan. May we see the rededication of the temple on this coming Rosh Chodesh Nisan, right? Today, may the temple be rebuilt today. Amen. Sharon also says, Maimonides also says to eat breakfast as a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner as a pauper, right? So front load your eating early in the day. Bill, what makes an ox particularly ornery in Nisan? Relatedly, could someone remind me, does the Torah distinguish between an ox and a bull, or is the ox... I'm sorry. Okay, I was just reading that question and it disappeared on my screen. Sorry. I'm not sure. I think that an ox and a bull in this sense are the same. And if we're talking about why would it be ornery in Nisan, I suspect that would be because it's mating season, right? All the birds are getting ready. They're starting to build their nests, etc. But I don't know. I'm definitely not a have no experience on farms and cattle ranching, so I can't answer the question. Bill also says, when it says putting your hand on your head is a way to fall asleep, is that saying it is a soporific, or is fall asleep here a euphemism for death? What a good question. I didn't see any note like that about it. I suspect that it's not a euphemism. I suspect that it just means if you put a hand on your head, it helps you fall asleep if you're feeling a little bit sleepless. Okay, here's the rest of Bill's question. Is the ox in some way related to the Eastern zodiac that has the year of the ox, but the name means any bovine? I don't know, Bill. I don't know. But it does seem to me that when we're talking about the dangerous ox, we're just talking about a bull in the same way. Terry, what about price checking on things, say if you've only got X amount to spend? I mean, of course we can be careful shoppers. Of course we can. But I think the idea is be careful how your conduct affects the seller, right? And so like on that right here, there's a note. Do not stand over a purchase. This practice is prohibited because it might cause other sellers to raise their prices unjustifiably as they think that he is willing to buy at that price. Conversely, when this individual refrains from buying, the merchant might attribute his reticence to the low quality of the product. So they're talking about, in that more specific instance, like you can sort of imagine the shuk in Jerusalem, right? Like a very public market with lots of stalls, many stalls selling the same merchandise. One person kind of studying it like he's thinking about buying. The other sellers say, oh, no, man, come over here. I mean, it can lead to, if you're not really intending to buy, it can communicate information that isn't real and cause the sellers to adjust their prices accordingly. And then I'm adding this thing about don't mislead a salesman that he thinks he's going to sell to you, and really you're just kind of you want to get information about these products, but your intention is to go buy it on Amazon. In that case, be direct and tell him what you're about. And then he can choose whether to spend time with you or not. It's just a matter of being honest and not being misleading. But with the extra caveat that sometimes we don't think we're lying. We don't think we're doing anything wrong, but it doesn't occur to us that the way that we're behaving might be misinterpreted by others. And that can lead to that sorry, not sorry apology. Oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, but it's not my problem that you feel that way. And the Talmud is telling us, no, if it's predictable that other people will interpret your behavior in a way that's not the way you intended, but it's predictable that they might read it that way, then you are responsible to adjust your behavior so that you don't mislead people if we're going to really aspire to lead as ethical a life as possible. And finally, Lynn, Hodesh Tov, wishing us a good month. The first commandment given to Israel as a nation was this, Rosh Hodesh, the first day of Nisan, right? That happened when we're still in Egypt, the year before, right? So the plagues played out, the 10 plagues took about a year to play out. The first commandment that was given to the Jewish people as a nation was, this shall be for you the first of months, referring to Nisan, the month that includes Passover. Rosh Hashanah is the first month of the year. This is still called the first of months to you because it's the month of our redemption from slavery in Egypt. Welcome to the month of freedom and the month of miracles, says Lynn. Amen. I hope you've enjoyed our learning tonight. And with God's help, we'll be together again tomorrow, Sunday night at the regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific. Have a great night, a great week, and a great